It's an honor to be here this evening. Well, that's me.
With the beehive?
Looky there. The one on the right. You know, what do you notice about that picture when you take a look at it? Like, there's a couple interesting things about it.
Is that your bottle?
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say my parents allowed me to play in places that there were bottles laying around at an early age. Actually, the bottle belonged to my little brother.
Oh, sure.
His name is Stephen. I think it was either a Christmas morning or shortly after Christmas. Now, if you look to the left, you might say, is that Scott's mom? Who is that lady? Well, how many have ever seen a show that was called Midwestern Hayride? Out of Cincinnati, Ohio, 60s and early 70s. When I was 2 years old, I became extremely fascinated with Bonnie Lou at age 2. My parents would say, I would ask, when's Bonnie Lou on? When's Bonnie Lou on? And she was on every Saturday. And she actually was considered one of the first female rockabilly stars. And she had quite a following, including young Scott Greeson. That planted the seed for me wanting to say, Mom, I want a guitar like Bonnie Lou. And so I estimate I was probably, at that age, I was probably 4. And I started playing guitar. My topic tonight is an interesting one that's very, very hot with people right now. I'll tell you what, this past week, downstairs in the SAMI meeting, that's our songwriters meeting, I mentioned my topic. I just wanted to see what kind of a reaction I would get. Oh my gosh. People were, I would say 90% of them had an opinion, and they did not hold back in expressing that opinion. And it wasn't favorable. So are you going to tell us that we need to start using AI? No. What I'm going to tell you is I think we need to talk about it. Some few things that I learned about myself early on. When I was a young man, when I started to try to learn to read and I started to learn my ABCs, I was actually the last one in my neighborhood learning my ABCs. And my parents were really fascinated. Why can't Scott learn his ABCs? He can sing songs that Bonnie Lou sings. Why can't he learn his ABCs? Well, we found out when I was in the 2nd grade, when I say saw was saw, that's the way I saw the world, literally. I was dyslexic. My fine motor hand-eye coordination was extremely compromised. And I had double vision. I kept on getting hit in the face with balls. And I thought, well, hey, you've got 2 eyes. You're supposed to see 2 at that level. No, I kept grabbing the wrong ball. And it was a very, very painful lesson. If you think about it, you typically don't tell a child that, hey, you have 2 eyes, but you're supposed to see 1. But it was very true, and it was something that was very painful. It wasn't until, and let me back up and say, when I say painful, it was painful that I was the last one to learn to ride a bike. It was painful that I was the last one to learn my alphabet. I felt very, very different from an early age. And one of the things that I'm very thankful for that we lived in this community, because I went to Purdue University for some studies, and they were able to figure out that I was not only dyslexic, but I had some of these other issues. And that my mom would work with me daily on. And they put me in some glasses, and things started to become a little better for me. But I had some really, really powerful affirmations early on. And those affirmations came in the form of a desire to not only play guitar, but to write music and to sing. It's kind of funny. My grandfather, his name was Melvin. He owned a filling station. I've got a song about him. He inspired several songs. The irony of it is that my mother would tell me, you spend the weekend with your grandpa, don't ever sing any of those songs in public that he sings or writes because they're considered ornery. And she was right, and I never did. But at the same time, my grandpa was a very creative man. He loved to create with his hands. He was a mechanic. He could fix anything. But he loved to sing and he loved lyrics. At age 12, I had my first band and I started songwriting then. And then at age 14, I entered a songwriting competition. And ironically, it was for not just adults, it was for children also, but it was all graded the same. And I was shocked. I ended up in second place. It was sponsored by Kentucky Fried Chicken and Dunkin' Donuts. And I won donuts and fried chicken and a bunch of vinyl records that nobody wanted. But didn't matter to me. That was a really strong affirmation. And guess what? I found out that I may not have been very good scholastically, but people liked to hear me sing. People wanted to hear what I had to say when I would write. And the doctors told my parents, look, Scott's going to have a hard way to go. Scholastically, don't know what he's going to achieve. You need to get him engaged in something that he loves. My dad says, well, he likes Bonnie Lou, and she likes to sing. And we're going to encourage him to play music. And they did from that moment on. There was no looking back. The songwriter's human condition. Being a songwriter is like having a good disease. You won't die of it, but you will die with it.
So true.
My friend Larry Kingston was a very successful singer-songwriter in Nashville. Worked directly for Dolly Parton for years. I wrote with his brother, who happened to live in Lafayette for a short period of time. We became very close. And Larry taught me a lot of things, but one of the things that Larry taught me was songwriting is a craft. It's no different than taking your woodworking tools and starting to shape a piece of wood and to craft it into something meaningful. It's work. He would tell me about the tools that you would use. And about that same time, we started a songwriters group here in Lafayette called Sammy. And we would encourage each other. We'd have workshops. We'd learn from each other. I learned about using a thesaurus, a rhyming dictionary. And with computers, when they started to become something that were accessible, how to use Word and spell check. I used to be quite anytime I would chart something out for a group to play, people would find it comical. I'll just give you one example. Christmas songs, I remember mistletoe. You don't even want to know how I spelled mistletoe. It was an explosive holiday celebration. But songwriting became a real obsession with me. I felt as though I had stories to tell. And when I had a guitar on, it didn't matter that I was a chubby little kid who struggled in school. All that just went away. And as we got access to things like smartphones, it was more easy to capture your ideas and your thoughts by recording them. I found myself beginning to grow in the craft, the tools of songwriting. You know what? Of recent, in the past 2 years especially, my friends have brought up the topic of, well, hey, what about AI? AI. Isn't AI just another tool? Never thought about that. I really hadn't thought about that. And not in that way either, because to me, it was like, oh my gosh, let somebody else get involved in my songwriting that's not even human. But if we think about what AI really is, it's the collective of data of all of us. Everything that's been written, everything that's been recorded. It's really the products of all of us into a big machine. It's been captured, It's very powerful. And in some ways, very scary, especially to those of us who create. And we know that the more we feed into it, the better it will get. So you think about this for a second. Do I use AI? Do I not use AI? What's right? What's wrong? I see songwriting competitions trying to police this. No AI. If you're going to enter the songwriting competition, no AI. But how do you know whether somebody's using AI or not? Now, I have professors, friends that tell me that one in particular, he's a songwriter as well. He will tell me, Scott, for some students, it becomes very clear to me that they're using AI. When they're using a literary genius that they haven't expressed for the entire 6 months that I've been with them, and these papers that they're turning in, it becomes very clear to me that they're using AI. I just had this conversation yesterday with that gentleman. But does it have its place? Think about this for a second. If AI is accessible to all songwriters, isn't the playing field level at that point? Shouldn't you be able to use that any different than, I remember that, honestly, a digital thesaurus was something that scared people at one time. I remember bringing somebody, it wasn't I, but somebody brought a rhyming dictionary for the first time. I'm thinking, well, wait a second, I'm working to try to get these rhymes in my head. What are you doing? Isn't that cheating? And everybody started to get used to the tools. Ideas, life experience, words, music, persistence, plus tools equal a great song. These are all stories here that you see. All stories. Many of them happened right here on the stage. Music for me is so intertwined with my everyday life. It's like food. It's like water. They're my friends. I can't separate the two from my life. But let me just talk about this just a little bit. You know, when we think about life with AI, what do we have? We have this big machine that collects data and expels information at our access. But I believe that as human beings, we're not simply, or importantly, the collective soul. We write because we have to create and express. At times, that creation is unexplainable. It's just something that words sometimes just fall from heaven and go through our arms, through our fingers, to the paper or to the keyboard. We're able to express ourselves like a gift from heaven. This picture here is the most recent one that is very impactful for me. That's my friend Mark Boyd. That was his vow renewal this summer. I got to watch Mark play music with me and then become very sick, but very, very strong at the same time. Inspiringly strong. In fact, he played mandolin with me until he literally couldn't sit up in the chair anymore. And it was in the midst of a church service where he was playing, and he got kind of lopsided in his chair, and his wife was sitting out in front of him and helped him right himself. And he told me after the service, Scotty, that's it. You know, I can't do it anymore. Mark passed away last week, and we celebrated his life last Sunday. And you know how we did it? We did it in music. Oh, we had a good time. We had a great goodbye, right? As I think about that, I think about the inspiration, how he's inspired me. He inspired me to not only play his funeral, but my friend Sam and I have a song that we wrote about Mark. We haven't released it yet, but we will. The The gentleman at the top, that's Mr. Mike Byers over there on the far right. Ironically, we'll eulogize him this coming Sunday. Guess what? He's a musician. He's an artist. He's somebody that inspired me. There's nothing artificial about that. I just have to say that no matter what happens, you won't ever eliminate breath, touch, talk from the inspirational process. I'll leave you this one last story. Mark's wife called me a week before he passed and said, Mark's been unconscious for 23 hours. You need to come over. So I stopped and got her some lunch, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to pick Mark up some lunch because that's just the right thing to do. I know he's not going to eat it, but I'm going to feel better about bringing it. So I come over there, and she says, Scotty, he's unresponsive. I said, do you mind if I try to wake him up? No. So I'm sitting next to him. I'm rubbing his arm, making fun of his hair, teasing him, because he always had a good head of hair. I've lost my hair. And we always tease each other relentlessly. And that hadn't changed. And I knew that he could hear me. I just believed with all my heart he could hear me. No response. And it had been about 24 hours since he'd responded to anything. I said, Mark, I've got a new song that I wrote. I want you to hear it. I turned it on and I put it up to his ear. Within 5 seconds, his eyes pop open. He said, did I miss Izzy? Did she go off to school? That's his daughter. Then he says to me, that's a pretty good song. And then it was only like 10 seconds later, he says, man, am I thirsty? And the next thing I know, he says, man, I'm hungry. And he ate the entire container of mac and cheese that I brought him. If that's not an example of that's not an example of the power of the creative spirit through the arts, through music, I don't know what is. Will AI be a part of my future? It might be. It might never, but it will never replace the heart and soul of the songwriter. That's right. Thank you very much.